Well, welcome, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Hello, I am your host, DBJ. Welcome to the channel, RPG with DBJ. Today, we're going to talk about a number of things. Most specifically, if you've seen the title or the thumbnail, we're going to talk about badassery. Yes, we're going to talk about that. And the reason why? Well, it's because we feel like it. You know, on this channel, you guys come up with the themes. We'll take a theme and we will talk all about it all week long, Monday through Thursday at this moment, and we even have a future Friday. But more specifically, this week, today is World Building Wednesday. And today on World Building Wednesday, I thought we would slightly diverge a little bit because we don't often talk about specifically about best practices, what you should do, best anecdotes, and all that kind of stuff. We usually talk pretty openly, delving into the settings, as it were, because here on World Building Wednesday. But I thought we would talk about something that is pretty prevalent in the RPG community, and I think it's a perfect time to bring it up. All right, so you guys have heard probably ad nauseum at this point. Yes and, no but, collaborative storytelling, fitting the narrative positioning. What are some other catchphrases out there? Allowing, the rule of cool. I thought we would talk about the application of these things and how it very much fits into creating a narrative, creating a story, a feeling, and a psychological feeling that specific game rules may not be able to, that allows badassery to propagate at your table. Okay, so I thought we would do that. And for those of you who are very new to the channel, this channel, yes, we are on Twitch, and yes, we are on YouTube, and yes, we are on Discord. See what I did there? Yes, and anyway, if you're would be so kind and you approve of long form, unscripted content from the embarrassing foibles that I make before you, please help me become an affiliate on Twitch, become a follower. We can all go down the same path together. It allows me to bring you greater content in a more favorable fashion for you Twitch affiliates. Also, if you would like to if you are someone who likes to listen in and Discord is a better audio server for you, please go over to Fantasy Grounds College. Join Fantasy Grounds College Discord server. On the left, there's a slider, and there's like administrative offices and classrooms to learn about the virtual tabletop of Fantasy Grounds version 2. But we are down in the boiler room. Slide down all the way to the bottom, and that's where the cool kids are hanging out doing the wrong things in oh so the right way. All right, badassery World Building Wednesday. What do I mean by that? Well, we need a definition first about this. Yeah. One of those definitions I'm sure you can find in, as Deadman says, there's a badasses discussion in the Game Master's Guide for Exalted. For those who love a bucket of D10s, the Exalted role-playing game is completely built around the idea of being badasses. It's very much a half fantasy, half martial arts, anime styled, playing a demigod, kicking much ass, Dragon Ball Z-ish, Saint Seiya type of game. Believe you me, it makes a warm embrace of such a thing. Our clocks have moved. Our daylight saving time moved the 8th. Those of you in the UK and beyond, I believe it's later 29th of March. So, uh, yes, very much so. All right, so one of the definitions of yes and no but is the idea. Oh, I know another catchphrase. Wow, I can't believe I forgot about this. Failing forward or succeeding with consequence. Here's another thing. And the reason why this really fits into the idea of having a world with a bunch of badasses in it is because sometimes we sometimes we fall into the trap of, and those of us that are grognards have been playing role playing games for 40 plus years fall into the trap of our psychological makeup equals the terminology we use. So we roll dice and we'll say, oh, did you hit or did you miss? Did you pass? Did you fail? And there's no problem with it if you want to move forward. You want to move. Hey, thank you for Plura. It's been a little while there, but that's all right. You're always welcome back. Sometimes, just sometimes, you need to move the action forward. Did you trick the guard? Did you not? Did you open the locked door or not? Did you climb up the wall or did you not? But usually in our stories, our television shows, our movies, the action that includes consequence, the action that has creates an additional problem stacked on top of the problem, is usually the more interesting version of said thing. And I would actually tell you that some of our favorite action, detective, martial arts, gunmen, sword fighting heroes that we love so much, and the individuals that are part of those groups tend to be professionals. And so one idea of having like succeed with consequence or failing forward is a term I like to use is assumed professionalism. So when your player characters, and I've seen this happen, and at a very early age, I always thought this was a problem. Follow me on here. Follow me on this idea thread. Player character is an expert. Nay, I say they are a master of a particular endeavor. They are excellent martial artists. They pick locks. They are ninjas and they fade into the shadows. They are extremely charismatic. um, they are they are acrobats and are parkouristas. They are free runners bouncing off of walls. They are expert drivers or computer programmers or leaders or the strongest individuals in the world, etc., etc. They grab the dice. They go to roll to bend the bars, pick the lock, dodge, flip, do the amazing thing, and then the dice don't come up in their favor. And what do we normally do? Oh, you failed, right? And sometimes, if the dice have a critical failure, what we used to call a fumble, we love to sit around the table and kind of make fun and have that character be the butt of a joke or something like that, right? Like, oh, you tried to sneak in and you farted, or you thought you were strong trying to bend the bars, but my wizard came behind you and I got a critical success. I bent the bars and you just suck, right? It's stupid. Don't, okay. World building Wednesday, don't build a world where that kind of thing happens, right? Far better, especially to make your characters the badasses that they are, is to either fail forward or succeed with consequence. So let's take an example that I was talking with a longtime participant, Rickard. Let's take James Bond 007. James Bond 007 very rarely fails. I guess a modern context would be like a Jason Bourne from the Bourne series or Ethan Hunt from the Mission Impossible series. And James Bond is in a tuxedo, makes the googly eyes at the ladies, orders his oh so special drink, downs the martini, sneaks upstairs, goes into the room, goes to pick the lock on the safe, opens up the safe with some kind of device and or luck. Most likely looking around the room for maybe a book or an item sitting on a desk. Ends up just happening, after one or two chances, happens to know the password because of a special, very expensive item sitting on the desk, opens up the safe, and guess what? The item isn't there. Normally, you don't see like James Bond failing to open up the safe. You don't normally see the martial artist failing to knock out the guard, right? Usually there's some consequence to it. Yeah, the safe got open because he's an expert safe cracker. But this idea that failure means the individual has somehow failed in their skill, I think should change. And I mean specifically in a world where badassery is a thing, where your characters are professionals, it's cinematic, we want them to feel good. Oftentimes we tend to default to, oh, well, your character did a thing and didn't do it very well. And instead, if there are consequences to doing the thing well, maybe this would come across as not only less demeaning, but actually adding to the story. Yeah, Pillar-ist is talking about he regularly fails seduction rolls. He just makes so many rolls that he gets his way. Yeah, yeah, that is a thing. Talk about James Bond. Yeah, he's like every time he goes into one of those dinner parties, he's like, "Ooh, there's 18 women. I'm going to get a success in here some kind of way, right?" Tesla Ranger says Bond fails just enough to get put in the death trap, then he succeeds again to escape. Which death traps, the gunmen around them, the capture, the taken to the basement, the calling the phone call to the main bad guy, the main bad guy's right-hand man that has to come down to interrogate James Bond, the femme fatale who happens to be captured along with him. These are all consequences of things that still allow James Bond to be the badass that he is. Now, whether you agree or whether you like the movies or not, it's beyond. It's not the execution; it's the act of being able to do the thing, right? Deadman says there was a major discussion of fail forward in the Discord server in a system up subcategory. Yes, here's another thing as well that I think oftentimes we fail to realize, that if we decide to insert the rest of the world, this actually helps us rather than the PC against the always thinking very myopically, a very tunnel vision, with the PC against the adversary, adversary against the PC. Let me give you an example. And I'm stealing this example from Roll for Initiative, another channel that's up and coming and growing and does excellent content. So the player characters, they're fantasy characters, and there are armed guards around the Viceroy, and the Viceroy's in their sleeping chambers, and there are armed guards. They know there's a killer out there. The Viceroy's been under threat. The Viceroy's kind of an asshole. So the Viceroy is definitely paranoid and has many guards. And one player character, the Bard, the scary orc, the charismatic Bard, doesn't matter. They're like, well, I'm a diplomancer. They've got the maxed out charisma. They've got the maxed out persuasion or deception abilities. They are the arcane trickster. They come up to the guard and they go, I'm going to make a persuasion check to get the guard to move out the way. Now, in the context of what's going on, you as the game master are like, it doesn't matter how charismatic you are. The guards and everyone, there's no way they would ever let anyone into this room for any reason. They're not going to let maids in. The Viceroy is paranoid. The story really would just get circumvented by just a simple roll. These people are not going to do it unless you somehow deceptively become a guard, in which case even the main guards are like, you don't belong here, unless they are very, very creative in their method to get into the room. Simply talking the guard out of walking away with a simple persuasion check is not going to work. But the player character is the diplomancer. So how do you handle this? Well, it doesn't have to be player versus guard, guard versus player, if you include the rest of the world. Player rolls dice, bam, 20 or whatever the critical is for your game. Bam, 20 plus my benefit. Blah, blah. I rolled a 38. Guard moves out the way. You as the game master are like, shit. There's no way. They've seen people murdered. Nobles have been killed in the streets. Okay. You can still, in this very situation, without demeaning the player character, say, guard doesn't move at all, doesn't budge, looks at you, thinks about it, and goes, you need to step on there, commoner, go away, before I draw my sword and call others as other armed guards come down the hallways or something like that to get ready to intimidate you. But you can still give them success as the guard refuses to let them in, but maybe someone else overhears the conversation. Maybe the maid, the valet, one of the servants overhears this conversation. Maybe another political rival overhears the conversation and goes, psst, come here, come here. I heard you talking about getting in there, and I don't know you, and you don't know me, but, none of us like the viceroy. So if somebody were to happen to slide you a key, I'm presuming you would solve our problems, right? You can continue the story, can continue the success above and beyond the initial confrontation as to what's going on. Another thing that happens to happen a lot is, and this is a problem with the gaming style of Dungeons and Dragons, where there is separate roles to attack someone and a separate role for damage. So, and this is a real anecdotal story that did happen in my game when I was probably in my teenage years, early 20s. And here's how I handle it. Someone makes a critical attack. Boom. And of course, I know people have different rules. Follow me on this. We used, for our double damage, when you rolled a 20, we would take twice the amount of dice and roll them. We were low level, and someone in the game, archer, elf probably at the time, maybe we were playing like BX or something, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I guess that's called 2nd edition. Well, anyway, so they rolled a hit, archer, orcs or something. There was an orc chieftain or whatever, some kind of goblinoid army or whatever, charging the player characters. They rolled a hit. Bam. 20. Sweet. Oh man, I'm gonna put an arrow right into the chest of the orc chieftain. Cool. I'm sitting back like, damn. Okay. They rolled two 6-sided dice. Now in the old days, you didn't really get too many damage bonuses. They came up with double one, snake eyes. Right? Now, I hear you out there. You're like, the default one that would be doom doom da doom. The music like wah wah, and everybody goes about house ruling, and this is like, oh, this game sucks, and this is why I don't like this system, and blah. I hear you, but given like 2 heartbeats, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not going to let this slide. This person got a critical hit. I can't take away their badass roll simply because somebody rolled low damage. But without changing a thing, it's the narrative that shapes it. So I came up with it says a first edition AD&D was more like 1.5 edition. Yeah, that was before they even had skills and proficiencies, all that kind of stuff. So I said the arrow flies through the air, slow motion, heading towards the throat of the orc chieftain. The blade, the very edge of the arrow, slices past the orc chieftain's throat. A line of blood, coursing down his tunic, doing very little damage. The arrow slams into a tree, buried halfway through it, carrying with it the momentum of something that could have pierced steel. The orc chief's eyes looked panic, and you probably say something like, the next time this arrow goes straight into your eye unless you back down. And so I gave them the win by reshaping the narrative, by letting them go, well, yeah, yes, and this thing happened. I gave them the the benefit of the doubt. I gave them you know what, you did get a critical success. What does a critical look like? You didn't do very much damage. No, you didn't. But what does that look like to still grant that critical success? Sometimes when someone wants to be a badass in a particular situation as well, by using the narrative to apply various conditions, various benefits to the thing that they're doing. Attacking someone and they become disarmed, attacking someone and they fall down and trip and fall, or the proverbial I kick the person in the chest and then they fall down the steps onto the onrushing guards that are running up the stairs that happens to disrupt the running stairs or something. The attacking someone and they fall into a tapestry that happens to cover their face and they're blinded temporarily. Having someone fall out of a window or fall off of a bridge or fall off of a battlement might be an addition. A creature that ends up getting its claw or spikes or tongue stuck in something as a character tries to sneak away from it or dodge around its head, or the creature becomes confused, or its tail gets whacked off because of your axe attack or something like that. Also, when it comes to yes and no but, there is no period at the end. It's not as if the player character gets to say, I get to add this thing, the game master is unable to modify it. Or it's not as if the game master adds a thing and the player character is unable to modify it, right? Maybe, just maybe, that fireball doesn't just do damage, but it sends up a flare that the entire armies look around at it, and it's like you just summoned up a nuclear bomb. Like everyone's eyes are just pasted on this enormous ball of fire with thick smoke and burning bodies. Maybe does that cause people to become morale to become shattered, and some of the army starts to hesitate as those in the background are like, hell no, I'm not going towards that. Is that a thing that happens? Maybe a swordsman slices so many enemies in such a couple of second heartbeats that the others around them are like, ooh, we need to start thinking about this. Maybe we might want to do might want to have like a little bit of a retreat going on here, elbows and assholes, right? Just everybody starts turning tail and running. Okay, if you want to do that. Also, when it comes to assumed professionalism, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has a rule, and I when I read this rule, and I'm going to tell you what it is. When I read this rule, I was like, I've been doing this for like 17 years already. Like, really? The rule is something called passive fill in the blank. Most likely it is used for passive perception, but the rule actually states for all skill attempts. And it is the idea of taking 10. Basically, you get their skill, your entire skill bonuses, skill bonus proficiency plus 10, and it is like a passive ability without having to make any die rolls, whether a character notices something. And mind you, they use that as an example, but the rule actually applies to all skills for every PC. Assumed professionalism is the idea that you don't ask for die rolls all the time for everything ad infinitum, amen. It is the idea that instead of the character who's a fighter that walks out of the tavern, instead of you going, make a perception check to see if you notice the thugs, right? Instead, what you do is you describe this, after a night of drinking, you've come back from your adventure and you're like, wow, you're full of grog. You step outside, but even with a slight buzz on, you notice that there's something out of the corner of your eye. Is it a shadow? No, you know what it is. These people are, what is it, one, two of them behind you, maybe three in front of you. Yeah, you've seen this before. Thugs, bandits, criminals. They're here to probably try to rob you. But even with your mind slightly distracted,